Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack something really fascinating, the philosophy behind the architecture of a positive mindset. Now, right off the bat, let's zero in on that one crucial word, architecture. We're not talking about some fleeting feeling here, right? It's not something that just magically happens because you had a really great cup of coffee this morning. Nope, architecture requires intent. You need a blueprint, a solid foundation, and most importantly, it requires a builder. So throughout this explainer, we're going to break down a remarkably concise yet deeply profound set of instructions that literally redefines how we approach our own internal state. We're talking about how to stop just being a tenant in your own mind and, actually become the architect. Notice the immediate authoritative command we have here. Choose your attitude. Think about the weight of that for a second. Attitude isn't framed as something that just happens to you. It's not the weather. You don't just wake up, look out the metaphorical window of your mind and say, oh, looks like a bad attitude today, nothing I can do about it. No way. It's a selection process. It's an active, deliberate choice that puts 100% of the agency squarely in your hands. Honestly, this completely flips the script on how most of us navigate our everyday frustrations. Moving into section 1, the power of choice and building your mental framework. So how does this actually play out? Well, let's look at the real-world application of the framework. Because look, if you don't actively choose the materials for your mind, you naturally default to a passive reaction. An annoying email comes in, traffic is backed up for miles, and suddenly those random bits of debris are forming the walls of your mood. The environment is basically dictating your internal state. But with an architectural mindset, the external event still happens. I mean, the traffic is still terrible, obviously, but you erect a barrier of choice. You look at your mental toolbox and you deliberately build the response that serves you best. You are the architect of that response. Which brings us to section 2, when positivity is difficult, acknowledging the friction. Because we absolutely have to ground this in reality, right? What if it really is difficult to be positive? Let's just validate that for a second. There are days, there are situations where forcing a positive outlook feels completely inauthentic. Sometimes it feels flat out impossible. And the beauty of this framework is that it doesn't peddle toxic positivity. It's not pretending that if you just smile hard enough, the whole shebang magically feels great. It inherently acknowledges that building this mental architecture involves real friction. Sometimes laying those bricks of positivity feels incredibly heavy. It takes that difficulty as a given variable. And then, and this is the best part, it offers a highly specific pragmatic solution for what to do next. Let's look at that solution in section 3. 3 types of attitudes are troubleshooting strategy. So when the primary system fails, when natural positivity is just way too difficult to muster, you don't just abandon the building and let the whole thing burn down. You switch to a deliberate fallback plan, and that revolves around the number 3. When positivity fails, the framework says you must pause and categorize your potential responses into exactly 3 types of attitudes. Now, you might label these as constructive, neutral, or destructive. But the real power here isn't just in the specific labels, it's the cognitive interruption that number creates. Think about it. When you're spiraling into a negative emotional state, your brain feels totally overwhelmed by infinite negative variables. By forcing yourself to stop and categorize, you literally constrain all that chaos into 3 manageable paths. Boom, you immediately regain architectural control. And this brings us to the ultimate daily application. You have to think through these 3 types in every situation. Literally every single one. This isn't just some strategy you pull out only during major life crises. It requires continuous, active engagement with your mindset. Whether it's a minor annoyance, like say a broken self-checkout machine at the grocery store, or a major hurdle in your career, if you find it difficult to be positive, you've got to apply this filter before you react. It's a relentless, continuous practice of mental architecture. Let's summarize this blueprint to make absolutely sure we have it firmly memorized. First, acknowledge the difficulty. Accept that right now, in this moment, being positive is just hard. Second, pause the passive reaction. Do not let your default emotions drive the car. Step on the brakes. And third, execute the troubleshooting strategy by evaluating those 3 types of attitudes. Deliberately select one. Following these exact steps is what bridges the gap between a really tough moment and an architecturally sound response. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pretty provocative question. Which attitude will you construct today? Remember, your mindset is not a fixed trait. It is an ongoing construction project. Those difficult moments, they aren't roadblocks. They're simply the moments where your architectural skills are tested the absolute most. So when you face your next challenge, are you going to let the situation define you, or will you take control of the materials, pause, and actively choose what you build?